Hey, welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to do things a little bit different. We've been doing some gun videos and some time-lapse videos of repairs and stuff I've been making, but I've been wanting to get into doing some videos for devotionals and stuff like that, doing some stuff for the ministry. So the first one I've got today, I'm going to do one on perspective. I've got some other ones lined up that I'm going to do later. Most of them are just going to be practical applications that'll help somebody get through some issues they may be having, verses and stuff you can go to that'll help you with a particular problem you may have in your life, whether it be having a problem with getting your perspective, or where to go to find truth, or how to, keep your patience, and the importance of being patient with God and in your relationship with God, and this and that. So today, my first one I'm going to do is going to be on perspective. No, actually, I'm sorry, that's the next one. The one I'm going to do today is on patience. We'll do perspective next time. So I'm probably going to try and do them once a week. So today I'm going to do patience, and next week I'll try to do perspective. For today's text, I'm going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And if you want to go there, I'm going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 13, and I'll read them for you after I get the introduction here. We're going to talk about patience. Losing your patience will result in a loss of perspective. If you lose your perspective, then you will get out of fellowship with God. And if you get out of fellowship with God, then you will get out of the will of God, and you'll go back to living like the world. One thing to remember, if you find yourself in this situation, it's always best to work on your patience first, and then work on getting back your perspective. And you will be able to reestablish your relationship through your fellowship with God, and then get back in the will of God. I have a separate devotional on perspective we talked about a minute ago, and I'll do that one probably next week. But today we're just going to focus on your patience. So let's get into our text. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. So we're going to talk about patience and the importance of it and ways to get it. And as you see in this passage we just read, that there is a time and a place for everything. You must have patience and wait for that time. Now, I myself have been guilty, and still am in most of the time, of being short on patience. But we are commissioned by the Lord to be patient. James chapter 5, verses 7 through 8 says, Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and the latter rain. Be ye also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. So you see here, Christ is the King of many things, and patience is one of them. He's been waiting 2,000 years for his bride, yet we can't wait a week for God to answer a prayer. Now, there's a lot of ways to learn patience. People today have lost most of that because they don't do anything with their hands anymore, aside from texting or playing video games. And that's the big issue with modern world today. Everything is instant. We have instant food, Instacart, Instapot, Instagram. At the click of a button, you can have everything you ever dreamed of delivered right to your house in any shape, size, color, or flavor. And if you don't like it, you can whine and complain about it, and you can get a full refund and a new product. So that's what you have. Let's look at Genesis chapter 3, verses 19, which says, In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground. For out of it was thou taken, For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. So there's a few things that we can take from this verse, but we're looking at getting patience today. So we're going to pull from this one is that one of the ways you can learn patience is to become a farmer on some scale. Even if it means just getting a small garden in your backyard. See, in planting a garden, you can't just go outside and toss a seed on the ground and expect it to grow. Chances are the birds are going to eat it. So first you have to be patient and wait for the right time of year for the seeds that you're going to plant. You'll have to till the ground, and that's no easy task. And if your ground is anything like what I have, it's really tough. Here we have red dirt that's packed with clay so it clumps together and it's full of rocks. So you'll have to get out there with a plow or a ripper and you're going to have to turn the ground. And then you're going to go behind it with a tiller or a clodbuster to bust up the clumps. And then you're going to pick out all the big rocks, and then you will till it and you will pick out more rocks. And you will till it again and pull out more rocks. And after about 5 times of this, it will still look like you never picked out any rocks. So that's going to require a lot of patience, a lot of it. Ask me how I know. But then when the ground is finally prepped, when the timing is just right, then you're going to fertilize the soil and you're going to till that fertilizer in. You're going to plow your rows. You're going to plant and cover the seed. You're going to be patient for rain, water between rains if needed, and hope that you're not having to water the entire time, patiently waiting for it to grow. You're going to have to go out there weekly and keep your rows tilled to keep the weeds from choking the plants out and make sure the bugs and the animals don't chew everything down. You may have to put pesticides out, or you may have to put other plants that'll deter bugs and other animals from chewing them down, whatever you got to do there. Because they're going to take and they're going to cut them, they'll gnaw your plants down to a nub. Ask me how I know. I've ran into this before. Everything I planted in an entire garden, everything was eaten down to nothing. All that work was just lost. So then, after you have invested all of that hard work, nothing you planted produced fruit, or it was ate up by the wildlife like what I had issue with. So your patience is really tested. So now you must patiently wait for the next planting season to come around and start all over again, patiently waiting and doing the work that needs to be done, and this time take extra measures to keep the plants alive until harvest time. But now your work still isn't done. All the crop must be harvested and planted in order to keep it from spoiling. Now, while that's a great practical application for patience in farming, we can take this a step further in how God is teaching it to us. See, God uses farming in an example through the Bible as a sort of a parable so that we can understand what He's teaching us. So just like in farming, in the ministry, you don't just go out there asking every person you run into to repeat a sinner's prayer and getting people saved. And that's what you see in a lot of churches today. You don't just go out there and get somebody to repeat a prayer and then they're saved. That's not how that works. There's a lot more work that goes into it than that. There's groundwork that has to be laid. You got to plant the seed, you got to water the seed. There's a lot that goes into it. So you've got to go out there and lay the groundwork. You've got to prep the ground by establishing a personal relationship with that person. You have to use what you have in your life as an example to them and show them that you have something that they want. You've got to be an example to them. They've got to better see in your life that you have something that they don't have. What you have is what they're missing. You have to better show them what you have inside of you is better than what they have. The next thing you have to do once your groundwork is done is you'll plant the seed. You're going to start giving them biblical principles and trying to teach them little things here and there, helping them get through things in their life with biblical principles, issues that may come up. And then after the seeds have been planted, they may start to sprout and they may start to ask questions and get interested. And at that point, you will continue to water that sprout. You're going to be answering every question you can that they have and investing in their life, inviting them to join in on events or whatever your ministry is having. And then there's going to come a day when that crop is ripe and ready for the picking, and they're going to ask to be saved. And you're going to be able to harvest that crop by leading that person to the Lord. But if you haven't laid the groundwork, then all you're going to have is a dry old seed laying on the ground. And also, if you don't harvest it, it's possible that someone else can, which is still great. You're not always going to be the person that's going to lay the groundwork and to do this, to plant the seed and to water it and to harvest it. You may only play one part in that whole ordeal. There could be many other people out there that can help with that, especially if you're doing anything with a group, like a ministry group. You can have, a group of people that are laying the groundwork together and are planting the seeds and are watering together, and then one person may get to harvest it, and that's great as long as that's getting done. You know, but the entire thing has to be done. It's not just out there just going to harvesting the seed. You've got to lay all the groundwork as well. But like I said, it's possible that someone else can. But whatever you do, you don't want that. You don't want it to spoil and get missed out on. You don't want to wait around too long, and you don't want the opportunity to pass. While if they're getting under conviction and they're ready to get saved, you want to be there and be ready for it. You don't want to miss that opportunity because it may not come again, at least not to you. So you want to make sure that you follow through it, or that there's someone there who can. So once again, you have to be patient and wait for that opportunity, though. You can't rush it either. There's going to be a time and a season for that. With farming, with harvesting your, the souls and stuff like that, and bearing fruit, there's a time and a place for it, and you've got to be patient and wait. You can't rush this thing. You can't rush God. God works in His time. You think God can rush you? You got an issue in your life, and you pray for it, and you expect it to happen right now and get taken care of right now. It's not always going to be that way. It's going to happen in God's time when He's ready for it. And sometimes there's other things in your life that have to be taken care of before that will. If you're consistently going around in a circle and back to the same old thing, then there's probably an issue in your life that you need to get squared away before God will let you move forward. You can see this in the nation of Israel when they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, how they kept going, walking circles around, out of the coast and back in, out the coast and back in, and they never did get anywhere because they had issues that they needed to work on. They had things and problems that was in their lives, and God wouldn't allow them to move any further until they got it squared away. And it was 40 years out in the wilderness wandering before everything had gotten worked out. And the older folks that were bringing in the false idols and false gods had died off. And then you had this younger generation here. They knew nothing about what God had done. And then you had Moses had to re-give the law again. And then they were able to finally go into the land. But, that took a lot of patience on Moses' part having to deal with that. Because he brought them out of Egypt, wandered around the wilderness for 40 years with them. There's a lot of examples of I could give you for patience. You take Job. Job was the most patient person in the world. Everything that he went through. Lost his wife, his kids, his family, his house. And I think I go into this a little bit later on in this one. Patience is very important. A loss of patience will cause some major issues with you. So let's carry on here. Let's go over to Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And it says, "And let us not be weary in doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." So anytime you want to test your patience or learn how to get more patience, just about any work you do with your hands will do it. A man will be known by the fruits of his labor, Psalms 128:2. He'll be known by the fruits of his labor. Psalms 128 verse 2 says, "For thou shalt eat the labor of thine hands, happy shalt thou be, and it shall be well with thee." So there's another aspect of it, that if you have patience and you put in the work, you will get and you get to harvest the fruit, no matter if it's literal work, or if it's sowing a seed that ends up getting someone saved, or helping someone through an issue. When you get to harvest that, you will have satisfaction in the work that was done. This is one of the places as a Christian that you can find fulfillment in your life. You can also make this application in your family. Look at Psalms 128 verse 3, which says, Thy wife shall be as a fruitful vine by the sides of thine house, thy children like olive plants round about thy table. Now, if you look at this practically, and if you put in the groundwork with your wife and in leading her and being a good minister to your wife, she will bear fruit, your children being the fruit, and they will show the work that was put in. Now, this verse also makes a parable about children being like a small olive plants around the kitchen table. Now, that is so true. You have the small children just like the plants. As they grow, you have to make sure they're getting water and nutrients that they need through being a good example, teaching them the Word of God, showing them how to work through issues, and training them up to the point that they themselves can bear fruit one day. Psalms 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." And so the process goes on and on and on. But you have to remain patient. None of it is instant. It takes time. Sometimes God don't get in a hurry, so you have to be patient and wait on him. And the work you put into something will always have instant results, won't always have instant results either. So be patient for the process and be patient with God. And be patient in your ministry and in your marriage and in training up your children. Now, we can take a quick look into the effects of having little to no patience. The first thing it could do, not having patience or being short on patience, is it could cause you to make rational decisions. Often enough, they're not good ones. So by you not being patient and waiting either on God or on the right events to line up, you could ultimately cause some major issues. The next thing it could do is it could cause someone to get physically hurt by rushing through a job or traffic or something like that. You could injure someone physically. The next thing, you could emotionally hurt someone by either making a rash decision or by shooting your mouth off at the first thing that comes up. I've been guilty of this a lot of times, and that's sometimes I had a problem with my temper. I would shoot off, and I would say something I didn't mean, rather than the first thing that come to my head before thinking about it. And it could hurt somebody's feelings or really upset somebody or cause a lot of tension in the workplace or a relationship that was, whether it's friendship or wife or whatever. I was short on my patience. I didn't take time to think about what I was going to say before I said it. I just shot the first thing off my mouth. And those things, you could really do a lot of damage. Loss of relationship there. You could hurt your fellowship. You could hurt your testimony there. And that's been probably one of the major problems that I've had. I've been saved for, I don't know, 8 years or so. And I've probably not had a very good testimony for most of that. Because even though I was saved, I had a problem with certain sins in my life, and it didn't show that I was saved. A normal person probably wouldn't look at me and say, "That's a saved person. That's a child of God." They wouldn't look at me and see that, because of the way I talked, the way I acted, the way I carried myself. So I mean, that's what you have there. So one of the most important things to remember is that when a situation comes up, it's to see the problem for what it is. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Keep your emotions out of it when a problem comes up. Even though it may make you feel a certain way about it, don't react to it based on your emotions. Handle the situation, the problem. Look for the source of the problem. That's a very hard thing to do. Most people run on their emotions. And like I say, even I have been guilty of this many, many times. I might even still be guilty of it today. And that's one thing I want to really make evident here with all of these devotionals that I want to try to do in the future, is all of these were ones I wrote to fix problems that I have, but I want to share with other people to help them as well. I wrote these out like I was looking to help fix some of my own problems. And so I'm hoping in some way that I can help fix somebody else's problems or show them a way to get through that and where the issue, the root of the problem is. I'm not saying that I am perfect, by no means. I am the least perfect person out there. I still have a lot of these problems. A lot of them are not fully fixed because I have problems inside of me, but I'm trying to work through them, and I want to help somebody else do the same. So don't think that I'm better than you or I think that I am in any way, by no means. I want to help somebody else with the same issues that I've had throughout my entire life, through my Christian life, through my fellowship with other people. So don't let your emotions get the best of you. Keep patient, be patient, and see it through and work it through and deal with it from a biblical standpoint. There's biblical principles you can pull on every issue you ever run into at any time in your life. The book of Proverbs is a very good place to go. It deals with all the issues of life. It deals with the outcomes of both the wise man and the foolish man. It'll see every instance what a wise man will do and a foolish man will do, and what the outcome of those two men were at the end. If you'll handle things with the wise man's perspective or the foolish man's perspective. Great place to go for that. And at least then, if you're still upset with someone, if you've dealt with it from the biblical standpoint, if an issue comes up and accept responsibility for what you did, and you take responsibility, you bear that reproach, you bear that responsibility, then you can be blameless in the situation. Instead of trying to shove it off on somebody else, if you just go right into it and you accept your fault in there, where you messed up, and say, this is why I did, this is what I did was wrong, I'm sorry for that. And I know sometimes it sucks having to apologize. I feel like sometimes that's all I am doing, is apologizing for everything I do wrong. But I'm counting myself blameless for that, because I've took away what I've done. I've admitted what I did wrong, and I've said sorry for what I did wrong. And even though I may keep making the same mistake, I try to remain blameless every instance. And sometimes I'm still not. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I make a lot of mistakes still. But that's the thing. When you come into an issue, you want to try to consider yourself, to count yourself blameless before God. That was one of the things. That's one of the major things here, is you want to be blameless in the situation. So accept what you did wrong, admit what you did wrong, and then move on. Take your emotions out of it, handle the situation for what it is. But you'll be blameless, and you'll be in good standing with God, as long as you're handling every situation you come up to with biblical principles, and handling it the right way with the Bible. So the situation may have upset the other person, but your actions didn't add fuel to the fire. So if you've counted yourself blameless and you've handled it with biblical principles, you didn't add fuel to the fire. You handle it with God, and that's all you can do. It'll have to just pan out from there. Even if you're not able to restore the fellowship or whatever with that person, or you're not able to de-escalate the situation per se, you've at least not added to the fire. So don't pour gas on it. The next thing is going to be rushing through something and trying to push something on someone before they're ready. You could end up pushing them away for good. As we talked about before, being patient. Work the process of working the ground, sowing the seed, watering the plant, and then after all the work is done and the crop is ripe for harvesting, then you harvest it. So that's pretty much all I have there. Like I said, in everything you do, be patient. Patience is going to be the number one thing to get you anywhere you got to go. That's going to be the first step, is patience. I want to try to do these devotionals kind of in a step series. So we did patience today. The next step is going to be your perspective. So once you have established your patience and you're learning how to use patience, then you're going to begin to establish your perspective. You'll get God's perspective about things, and we'll try to walk through how to get God's perspective and look at things the way God does, see things the way God does, hear things the way God would, and you'll learn to handle things the way God would. That is our commission here as Christians now, is to be as much like Christ as possible. No, we'll never be sinless, perfect beings, but we should be able to be that humble, that meek, patient, temperate person. It's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to act on those emotions. You can't just go out there and just be cussing people and slandering people and putting them down. We're supposed to edify people. But if there's an issue that comes up, it has to be dealt with still. So you can be angry, but you don't want to act on an angry emotion. You want to handle things with biblical principles. And so for every issue, like I said before, every issue that you'll ever come up with, there's something in the Bible on how to deal with it. Because there's every issue in life that you'll ever come up with in there. Nothing is new under the sun. Everything's been done before. There's nothing new there. So that's pretty much all I have. If anybody has any questions, you can comment on here. Anybody has any requests for things that they would like to hear, I'll try to do what I can. But that's all. Thank you.